Salutations, my friends. I am easily distracted, and between the days of the 9th of December and the 18th of December, I made Balthazar vs. the Brain Eaters for the 70 FPS game jam. Anyway, if you'd be ever so kind as to join me in this elevator, I shall give you the elevator pitch. In this game, you will play as this gentleman here. He goes by the name Balthazar Boovlezoid, a bounty hunter trying to retake a space freighter full of fish food from an infestation of brain-eating monstrosities. The gameplay is a cross between a top-down bullet hell shooter and a retro first-person shooter, in the same vein as the help, I can't look away from the horizon perspective games that first pioneered the genre. But I hear you ask, distracted, how are you going to mix top-down perspective gameplay and first-person shooting gameplay? Those are two completely different genres of game that rely very much on the perspective in which you play them. Well, what we'll do is we'll put the top-down bullet hell shootery perspective on the left side of the screen and the rootin' tootin' demon shooting first-person action on the right side of the screen. The lore reason for the dual perspective is that this little thing over Balthazar's left eye is a small screen that receives footage from a drone above his head that I didn't model during the game jam, so I need to do that sometime. But yeah, that's why we can have brains in jars in robot suits that can see in two perspectives. The top-down perspective is great for knowing where the bullets are coming from, crucial to a bullet hell shooter game, and allows the player to skillfully dodge and weave between oncoming projectiles. A liberty not really allowed in the first-person perspective, as first-person really isn't that great for spatial awareness. However, the top-down perspective doesn't allow you to see enemies outside of this narrow window, so the first-person perspective will allow the player to see further into the distance and locate enemies at range, as well as return fire to enemies outside of the top-down perspective window. Oh yeah, and all the healing items in this game are fish food. And to heal himself, Balthazar just opens the top of his jar and shakes him in the top. You know how fish is good for your brain, right? Omega-3 fatty acids and whatnot. So why not just eat fish food, right? You're just absorbing all of the fishy powers straight from its unbridled fish power source. Except it's in a delicious flake form. That's what I call efficiency. The real reason all the health pickups are fish food is because I wanted to write that sentence and put it in a video. This project started the way many great Unity projects start, with a bean, and with coffee beans, which is how this project got done, because for all 9 days I was working on this, I was in a perpetual caffeine-addled haze of stress, ideas, and poorly written lines of C# code. This game uses 3 cameras to get the desired dual perspective. The first-person camera is bolted straight onto the player's face. The top-down perspective is parented several meters above Balthazar's head. The top-down and first-person perspectives both send their render data to render textures, which are then overlaid on the respective sides of the screen in UI elements of the third camera, which then renders to the player's view. In this footage, you can see that I started out with a more side-on kind of view for the left perspective, but I switched to a more bird's eye view perspective later in the jam, after I started designing the levels and noticed that in the cramped hallways, it was basically impossible to see the player and use the left camera to its full potential in the intended bullet hell projectile avoidance. Anyway, the first-person movement was created by having the camera set as a child of the player game object. Then we take input from the mouse's x-axis delta, or change in position on the x-axis of the mouse, and then rotate the player's body by vector3.up multiplied by the mouse's sensitivity and time.delta time, which allows us to have first-person camera rotation along the player's y-axis. Then to actually move the player around, we take input from the WSD keys and map the W and S keys to the y-axis of a vector2, and then the A and D keys to the x-axis of the same vector2, which we will call the input vector. Then we take the input vector and multiply its x value by the player's transform.right vector and add it to the player's transform.forward multiplied by the input vector's y value. We will call this the direction vector. Then we take the direction vector and multiply it by the speed variable and time.delta time and call that vector the move vector. Then we simply take the move vector and stick it in the player's character controller.move, and would you look at that? Movement. The bean is dull as character designs go, so I modeled Balthazar up and put him in the game. However, I had a spot of trouble getting him to walk the way I wanted to, because he had 8 total directions of movement. Which means if I didn't do something different, I would have to create all the necessary shooting, not shooting animations, but also create the same animations in all 8 directions of movement. And with 3 different weapons, this was going to add up to an absolutely ridiculous quantity of animations. Not to mention the trouble of programming the logic required to make sure that the right animation plays at the right time. So instead of animating all of that, I decided to simply remove his top half from his bottom half, then animate them separately, and then reattach his bits back together in the game engine later. This means that I only have to create one walk animation and one idle animation for his legs, then just rotate his legs in the direction that he's walking. Then get the root bone of the top half and pair its position to the end of the pelvis. and this allows Balthazar to move his legs independently of his top half, which is great for me because now I don't have to spend 20 hours getting the animations right. Next on the agenda are the weapons, this being a first-person shooter and all. I only got the chance to add 3 guns over the time I was working on this, and I was thinking of adding more, but I was pressed for time. So the guns that I added were the dual laser pistols, which are pretty all-purpose, the shotgun, which is great for vaporizing things at close range, and finally the assault rifle, which has a very fast rate of fire, but low bullet damage. So just hold down the right mouse button until the baddie's bits stop wiggling. I also didn't include reloading as a feature, which we can call a homage to retro-style first-person shooters. But we can also call it I didn't want to make reload animations, reloading isn't fun, and I had far too many ideas for this game and far too many rapidly approaching deadlines. Alright, the enemies. So the lore surrounding the enemies is that they are brain-eating cyborg pirates from the planet Zorppon III. If you want me to supply a reason for why I've given everything strange names in this, you should go read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, resulting in these eligible bachelors. The first enemy I created was the Brain Eater Berserker, whose combat strategy involves just running up to the player until they're in melee distance, whereupon the next enemy that I created is the Cyberserker, who is just like this guy but bigger and with exhaust pipes stuck in his chest and green traffic lights instead of eyes. I made 3 variations of Brain Eater but with shotgun. The base shotgun wielder can be dispatched with a couple shots from the laser pistols, the shotgun runner is quicker and attacks at much closer range but has way less health, and the cyber shotgun wielder has more health but will attack at a closer range than the base shotgun wielder but slightly further away than the shotgun runner. I made 1 enemy that wields an assault rifle, and the final 2 enemy variations were Brain Lords, who attack you by conjuring brain lasers, then firing them in these patterns which are easy to avoid if you are aware of your surroundings. The regular Brain Lords have less health than the Cyber Brain Lord, but the Cyber Brain Lord is only really the final boss of the game, so it makes sense that he's a massive bullet sponge. The setting of the game is aboard a massive space freighter owned by a shadowy mega corporation known as Xornglorph Higgins Industrial Logistics. The first 2 levels are designed to take place within the storage rooms of the freighter, hence the immense quantities of Xornglorph Higgins Industrial Logistics branded shipping containers strewn all about the place. Levels 3 and 4 were designed to look like hallways that would connect all the bits of the ship to all of the other bits of the ship, with level 4 ending in a break room. The final level, level 5, is designed to be the ship's bridge, but also functions as the final boss room. I'm considering continuing to develop this game because I had more ideas, but I was restricted by the time limits and I couldn't add all the stuff I wanted. So yeah, give it a play if you feel like it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, but keep in mind it is still extremely dodgy and lacking polish. All the menus are dreadful, but yeah, that's all for now. See ya.